At some point over the last decade, you probably stopped thinking about piracy, the one that lived in torrent folders, shady forums, and media players like VLC or KM Player, the one your high school friend used to download 20 seasons of The Simpsons in a single night. For a while it looked like it was gone. Spotify made music easy, Netflix killed the DVD, and for the first time since the early 2000s, the digital high seas started to feel empty. But here's the thing, piracy didn't die. It just went quiet, and now it's back. As of 2025, the average household pays for 4 to 5 streaming services, totaling over $60 per month. And in that chaos, piracy found an opening. Last year alone, over 216 billion visits were logged on piracy sites. That's more traffic than YouTube gets in some months. Think of Netflix knockoffs, with no passwords, no ads, no geo-blocks. IPTV boxes that come preloaded with every movie still in theaters. Even apps hiding in plain sight on the App Store. And here's the strange thing. Most of the people using them are already paying for a streaming service. They're not freeloaders. So why are they using pirated sites? The early 2000s to the mid-2000s and 10s were the wild west of the internet. Music, movies, video games, any piece of digital content that could be copied, zipped, and shared was shared by people. CDs labeled in Sharpie with Jay-Z plus Kanye plus Eminem. Full albums. External hard drives so heavy with pirated content, they had actual file curators. Entire communities existed on shady forums to share metadata templates, album art, and scene release naming conventions. And BitTorrent, that was the heart of it all. At its peak, BitTorrent traffic made up nearly a third of all internet activity. 1 out of every 3 bits traveling across the web was part of a swarm. Tiny pieces of files being uploaded and downloaded simultaneously by strangers around the world, often without a single central server. It was decentralized, efficient, completely outside the reach of any one government or company, and most importantly, unstoppable. Then there were the apps: LimeWire, uTorrent, FrostWire, SoulSeek, Emule. At one point, LimeWire had more active users than Facebook. It made sense though. Back then, the world was just making the shift from physical to digital. CDs were expensive, DVDs scratched easily. And suddenly, here was this new medium, where songs, movies, and shows could be duplicated endlessly for no cost. It was a no-brainer. And when you throw in the rise of cheap hard drives and ever-faster broadband connections, piracy was mainstream. By some estimates, over 95% of all music downloads in the early 2010s were pirated. And here's the strange part. Even people who pirated everything weren't against paying. They just hated jumping through hoops. A 2013 study in Australia found that people who pirated the most were actually more likely to pay for content if it was easily available and reasonably priced. The problem was, it rarely was. Studios didn't adapt fast enough. Music labels clung to the $1.29 per song model, while people were downloading full albums in seconds. Movie distributors insisted on region locks and release windows, while the internet was global and instantaneous. And video games, DRM systems were so broken, pirated versions often worked better than the ones you bought legally. So people made the logical choice. They stopped paying. Of course, governments tried to stop it. There were lawsuits, ISP throttling, raids on servers, entire websites went down. Mega Upload, Demonoid, ISOHunt, What.cd. But for every site that fell, 2 more popped up. It became a game of digital whack-a-mole. Even the Pirate Bay, the cockroach of the internet, got taken down dozens of times, only to reappear days later. There was even a point when one of the most downloaded torrents on the Pirate Bay was the Pirate Bay itself. Digital content felt intangible, disposable, and unfairly locked away if it wasn't available in your country, or on your platform, or at a price you could afford. Well, someone somewhere had already uploaded it for you, and that felt more like liberation than theft. But then, something unexpected happened. Piracy, which had grown relentlessly year after year, started to decline. By the mid-2010s, traffic to torrent sites was shrinking. Peer-to-peer networks were fading. The average user wasn't booting up uTorrent anymore. They were opening up something new. Spotify gave you the entire music industry in your pocket for the price of a sandwich. Netflix handed you thousands of movies and shows. No ads. You could legally binge Breaking Bad without worrying about seeders or formats or file extensions. And unlike piracy, these platforms actually remembered where you left off. They made paying feel easy. Prices were low, users were happy, and piracy was finally losing. Not really. That entire golden age was built on borrowed time. You see those massive libraries that launched Spotify and Netflix into the stratosphere. They weren't owned. They were licensed, leased temporarily from music labels and movie studios, who, at the time, didn't take streaming all that seriously. So they handed over the rights, collected the fees, and let these new platforms grow. And grow they did. Netflix went from mailing DVDs to dominating screen time in hundreds of millions of homes. The moment studios realized just how powerful these platforms had become, they wanted in. Disney pulled its movies, Warner pulled Friends, NBC yanked The Office. Every studio you've ever heard of suddenly wanted to launch its own streaming service. Why license to Netflix when you could launch Disney+, HBO Max, Peacock, Paramount+, Discovery+, and just keep all the revenue for yourself? That single decision by multiple studios at once broke the illusion. Your favorite shows were no longer in one place. You needed 5 different apps just to keep up with what used to live in your Netflix queue. New exclusives dropped every month on platforms you didn't even remember subscribing to. And while the content was multiplying, so were the costs. The one service that felt like everything became just one of many. And in the blink of an eye, you went from spending $10 a month to 60 or more. And what's funny is that you still couldn't find what you were looking for. Movies moved, shows vanished, whole catalogs came and went based on licensing contracts that none of us could track. You wanted to watch Gremlins? Just check which platform has it. Except it's not on Netflix, it's not on Disney+, it's not even on Prime unless you pay again. And if you live in the wrong country, it might not be anywhere unless you use a VPN. And to make matters worse, the platforms themselves started changing. Netflix raised prices, then they cracked down on password sharing. Spotify added audiobooks. Cool in theory, but you still have to buy them separately. Amazon Prime Video started forcing ads on you, unless you pay extra. And don't even get started on Apple TV+, and how everything there feels like a trailer for something you still have to buy. People who once happily paid for everything started scaling back, dropping subscriptions, canceling during off-seasons, rotating services every few months just to keep costs down, or they went looking for alternatives. Sony recently announced that users who purchased certain Discovery shows on PlayStation would soon lose access to them entirely. You paid money to own a digital copy of something, and the platform just took it back. What's the real difference between piracy and paid streaming? One is technically illegal, the other just feels illegal. This is why piracy is back. If your mental image of piracy still involves lime green interfaces, sketchy download buttons, and grainy cams with audience coughs, you're about 10 years out of date. Today, piracy looks polished, and honestly, it feels like streaming, but better. Welcome to Piracy 2.0. Private Plex servers are becoming the go-to for media collectors. They run on home hardware or rented cloud servers, filled to the brim with every movie, every show, every anime, in full 4K HDR. These setups are clean, fast, beautifully organized, open source streaming interfaces that rival and in many ways surpass the user experience of commercial services. No ads, no logins, just your content. There are entire Reddit communities dedicated to walking you through how to build your own private Netflix from scratch. People build NIS drives the size of mini fridges just to archive high bitrate versions of their favorite franchises. Telegram channels with hundreds of thousands of subscribers offer daily drops of new releases, sometimes before they're even officially out. Z Library made headlines for offering millions of free books in every genre you can imagine. Sci-Hub is handing out academic papers the same way Pirate Bay handed out movies. There are even piracy apps now, some disguised as media players, some posing as backup tools. And while this might sound like something limited to tech-savvy users in dark basements, it's not. Piracy 2.0 is casual now. You've probably seen it without realizing. Maybe you watched a TikTok where someone says,
"Here are 3 websites you need to use if you want to watch movies and TV shows for free."
The line between pirate and normal user is thinner than ever. Because at this point, people aren't pirating to rebel. They're pirating because it works. There are 4K HDR rips online within hours of a streaming release. Scene groups compete for speed, encoding quality, and file size, like it's an art form. Subtitle teams provide multi-language support faster than official services. Some fan-made encodes actually look better than the originals. And here's the craziest part. It's almost entirely distributed. There's no Napster to take down, no single Pirate Bay to raid. Just thousands of decentralized nodes, private servers, invite-only forums, federated search engines, encrypted cloud drives, peer-to-peer mirrors. You can kill a site, but you can't kill a swarm. Even governments are starting to realize this. Anti-piracy coalitions used to focus on shutting down high-profile sites. These days, they're drowning in the Hydra effect. Every site they kill spawns 5 more in private. fragmented spaces they can't even monitor. At one point, Hollywood had it all locked down. Studios owned the theaters. Cable owned your screen. DVDs filled the gaps. If you wanted to watch anything, you played by their rules. Then piracy cracked the system wide open. So they gave us streaming as a kind of peace offering. All your content in one place for one low price. It worked. Piracy dropped off a cliff, but it was never meant to last. Because when the studios saw how valuable streaming could be, they did what studios always do. They tried to own all of it. Streaming stopped being trustworthy, and all of this happened while production costs kept rising. Theaters struggled to recover, and the promise of endless subscriber growth started fading. To keep investors happy, companies pushed out more content, cut corners, canceled shows early, and added ads even for paying users. Instead of fixing the experience, they punished the audience, and the audience responded with exits. They canceled subscriptions, they rotated platforms, and some of them, more than before, went back to piracy. Piracy didn't sneak back in, it was invited.